Super Mario Bros. Wonder is an absolutely wonderful game. It is truly a masterpiece of surprise, a smorgasbord of new ideas. What other game features friendly talking flowers whose sole purpose is to tell you they're proud of the person that you've become? This was the 2D Mario game that all of us needed. And when I say all of us, I'm including the developers too. This game gave the dev team the perfect opportunity to break free from the past and show the world that Nintendo hadn't run out of ideas at all. But how did it all come together? Well, get ready, because this video is going to explain everything. Where the talking flowers came from, the inspiration behind the game's expressive visuals, and why on earth there's an elephant here. I've also got plenty of scrapped wonders and prototype footage for us to watch as we learn about the complete developmental history of Super Mario Bros. Wonder.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Do you feel like Nintendo of Japan makes all of the best merch items, like these cute little Pikmin plushies, actual Salmon Run gear that you can wear? Or what about things from Club Nintendo's past, like the Wii Remote, TV Remote? Well, you can still find all of that for purchase on Buy. You know Buy, the amazing proxy service that lets you buy anything from Japan. From pins to figures, physical media, and so much more, Buy is the place to look for Japan-exclusive Nintendo merch, like this Bulborg purse that you can shove your hand cream into. Hold on to your hat, because Buy is offering a huge coupon for 2,000 yen off your first purchase. Scan this QR code or click the link in the description to get that coupon for 2,000 yen off your first purchase. Or if that's not cool enough for you, how about this? Buy is also giving away for free a talking flower plushie that actually talks. You pay nothing for the item, shipping is completely covered, and you get the greatest gift you could ever receive. Just click the giveaway link in the description to enter within the next couple weeks. Now it's about time we learn about the development of Super Mario Bros. Wonder.
To start this video off, let's get to know the team behind Super Mario Bros. Wonder, starting with Takashi Tezuka. This game marked the 39th year he's been involved in the development of Mario games. He started all the way back in 1985 as the assistant director and game designer of the original Super Mario Bros. And now he's the producer of Mario Wonder. Next is Shiro Mori, who was the programming director of New Super Mario Bros. U, and then served as the full-fledged director of New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. For Mario Wonder, he once again served as director. Now, we can't forget about Masanobu Sato. His first time working on a 2D Mario game was New Super Mario Bros. Wii, where he was credited with giving the Koopalings life through animation. With New Super Mario Bros. U, he moved to being the lead of design and now serves as the art director of Mario Wonder. And there were plenty of others involved on Wonder's development, including every single person involved in developing the original Super Mario Bros. On the NES. But it wasn't just development veterans of the Mario series, there were a lot of newcomers too. After all, Super Mario Bros. Wonder was the first new side-scrolling Mario game in roughly 11 years, so yeah, there was bound to be developers involved who had never even touched a Mario game like this before. Now, of course, during those 11 years, there were ports like New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, and there were reimaginings of classic games like Super Mario Maker, but the last 2D Mario platformer that was actually brand new was New Super Mario Bros. U for the Wii U in 2012. So what was going on? Why'd the 11-year hiatus? Were they really working on Mario Wonder for that long? No, definitely not. Tezuka had his hands full during that time working on Super Mario Run for mobile devices, as well as Super Mario Maker 1 and 2. But what really caused the hiatus was simple. Time just kind of flew by. And one day Tezuka was like, oh crap, we gotta make a new 2D Mario game. And that is how it all began.
During the development of Super Mario Maker 2, Tezuka began to think about what was next for 2D Mario games. But, as you'd expect, he was busy working on Super Mario Maker 2. He couldn't really do much other than think about potential ideas for the future. It wasn't until this game was complete before he could move on to his next project. Now, Mori was in a similar situation. He had to wait until New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe finished development, since that was taking up all of his time too. It wasn't until both of these games got done that development of Super Mario Bros. Wonder could actually begin in early 2019. But before we get to Mario Wonder, we gotta talk about Super Mario Maker. Now, there's a game series that's caused quite a bit of a stir over the years.
Before development on Mario Wonder began, Tezuka had noticed a similar story making its way through the internet, that Super Mario Maker had killed 2D Mario games. That the tools in the game were so expansive that it eliminated any need for Nintendo to make another side-scrolling Mario game. After all, people could practically create anything in Super Mario Maker. But news outlets failed to take one thing into account. Players could create a lot of things, but they couldn't create something out of nothing. It all had to be based on what was included in Mario Maker. That's where Nintendo had the edge. They could create something completely new, and Tezuka had gotten to thinking how they could use that edge to its full potential. They were going to do more than ever before, something completely different than anything previously seen in 2D Mario games. But even though Tezuka was confident that they could pull this off, a lot of people on the team were really worried. What if what the journalist said was true? People have already made fantastic levels in Super Mario Maker. Can we really do anything new that hasn't been made already? But Tezuka, always the optimist, was like, nah, it'll be fine. We got this. Well, if we're gonna make something completely different, it can't just look different. It has to feel different on a fundamental level. At least that's what Mori thought. During the early stages of development, he recommended that they create an entirely new game engine for Mario Wonder, completely severing ties with the new Super Mario Bros. Series, so that way the team would be able to create a new foundation for the future of 2D Mario games. Whoa, that's gonna take a lot of work, huh? On top of that, Tezuka also wanted Wonder to not just look and feel different, but offer more to the player than ever before. He wanted the game to be chock full of hidden surprises. See, back in 1985, when Super Mario Bros. Came out on the NES, it was seen as a game full of hidden surprises. You hit a block, whoa, there are coins in there. Oh, is that a mushroom? Whoa, Mario's big now. This game's crazy. Or at least it used to be. The stuff that made Super Mario Bros. Feel extraordinary has now become ordinary. And not just for players, but for the developers too. Tezuka wanted side-scrolling Mario games to feel extraordinary again, full of special moments, so that even if someone has played Mario for decades, they would still be surprised by what they find and have a smile on their face. And to make sure that was able to happen, the team did something extraordinary themselves. They made a video game without a deadline.
So yeah, that's a pretty big deal. Instead of nailing down a schedule early in development, determining how long it should take to finish developing the game, this time for Mario Wonder, they decided to skip past all that. No deadlines. Very out of the ordinary, but Tezuka found it was necessary. In order to create a game that was truly wonderful, the team was just told to take their time. And with an ample budget being dedicated to the project, they wouldn't need to worry about time or money. And they could just spend their days crafting every small detail to their heart's content.
Speaking of small, at the beginning of development, there were only a handful of people working on Mario Wonder. And because the initial size of the team was so small, it was not gonna be easy to narrow down what they actually wanted to achieve. In other words, they needed to determine what the core of the game would actually be about and get everyone on the same page. The core of past 2D Mario games was to focus on creating fantastic courses, designed to slowly ramp up the difficulty over time. But Mario Wonder didn't share that same core design. This time their focus was on creating as many surprises as they could fit in the game. Mori wanted there to be at least one surprise per course that would put a smile on the player's face. But making that many surprises was gonna be tough. Now, wasn't there like a Mario game released on the Switch that was already full of quirky surprises? That's right, Mario Odyssey. Why don't we ask someone who was on that development team to help out over here? And that's how Koichi Hayashida became a designer on Mario Wonder. In fact, this was the first side-scrolling Mario game that he had ever worked on. Previously, he's been known as being the main programmer of Super Mario Sunshine, the level designer for Super Mario Galaxy, director of 3D World, and recently, a producer on the Super Mario Odyssey team. Hayashida got involved in Mario Wonder in order to provide valuable insight from his time developing 3D Mario games, which are often considered the more out-there Mario titles, full of new ideas like water jetpacks or walking around balls in space, and the Mario Wonder team was extremely grateful for the help. After all, they were going through what they called a crisis.
Because Nintendo went 11 years without a new side-scrolling Mario game, It's not far-fetched to think that Super Mario Bros. Wonder is going to be a lot of people's first 2D Mario platformer. So the developers wanted to appeal to those beginners. But to do that, they're gonna need some fresh insight. How would someone who had never played a 2D Mario game play one in this day and age? And they were able to get that insight thanks to Tezuka's first ever mobile game that he served as director, Super Mario Run.
Now, I know Super Mario Run is an auto-scroller. It's not exactly the same as a side-scrolling Mario game, but it was close enough in gameplay style. And a big bonus is that a lot of beginner players from around the world just decided to download the game on their phone because it had that cute Mario guy in it. They weren't advanced Mario players. But instead of going all the way around the world asking beginner players what they thought of the game, they actually just had to ask one. A developer of Super Mario Run had the insight that the team needed already. This developer was a complete beginner at 2D Mario games and told Tezuka that they were disappointed playing Mario Run because they couldn't get past the mushrooms in World 1-3. This meant they were effectively locked out of the entire rest of the game because you have to beat every course in order to progress. So if you can't beat one, tough luck, no more game for you. Tezuka was caught off guard by this comment. He didn't even realize that this course in Mario Run was even that hard to begin with. It was only the first world. And he also didn't realize that having every level required to be beaten in order to beat the game had effectively blocked that player from enjoying any more of the game unless they got good. So, while developing Mario Wonder, the team decided that they didn't want to design a 2D Mario game like that anymore. They wanted all players of all skill levels to be able to progress through the game to the very end. And how would they do that? By doing things just like Super Mario Odyssey did, giving players the freedom to pick and choose what they wanted to do in the order of their choosing. Odyssey accomplished this by allowing players to choose which moons they wanted to grab and kept them moving through the storyline by not requiring them to collect all the moons in a kingdom in order to progress. This is another reason why Hayashida was such a valuable member of the Mario Wonder team, since 3D Mario games have always been specifically designed to get every player, regardless of skill level, to the end of the game. So instead of having players complete courses in order with maybe an alternate path here and there, this time they were going to give them way more freedom in Mario Wonder. So now getting into a castle just requires you to collect Wonder Seeds, which you can collect however you like. Want to play on the easiest courses and completely skip the hard ones? Go for it. Here, let me even show you the difficulty level and a photo of the course before you start it, just to see if that's the one you want to play. Missing just one more seed to progress and you don't want to go out and find it? Just buy one from the shop instead of searching for it. With these fundamental changes, you are now able to complete a 2D Mario game your way, something that really only existed in 3D Mario titles, and the Mario Wonder team was so proud of this design choice. And you know what? Since we're already making changes to the fundamental formula of the game, do we really need lives or a timer? They evaluated everything in this early stage of development. They didn't remove everything. Lives, for instance, didn't get scrapped, but they weren't afraid to throw away even major staples of the series, like the timer, which was only saved for specific levels in the final game. And with that, they now had a foundation ready to be built upon. It was time to finally bring 2D Mario games into the modern age, and the team was extremely proud of what they had built so far.
Alrighty, they got that foundation ready, and that's so great. But you know what we don't have yet? Any surprises. The team wanted to add tons of them to the game, so it's about time we start thinking up some ideas. But at this point in development, the idea of wonder flowers and wonder effects, none of that had been thought up yet. Instead, focus was on making a surprising power-up. It's kind of a tradition in 2D Mario games to have the game come with a new power-up. Like Super Mario Bros. 3 had the Tanuki suit, and New Super Mario Bros. Wii had the propeller mushroom. So what would this new game feature? Elephants. It was an obvious choice to add elephants into Mario Wonder. And I'm not joking, it really was. Let me explain.
See, early on in development, the team was discussing what kind of interesting game mechanics they wanted to add into this new Mario game. Someone on the team suggested having a power-up that would make the player's body bigger, which in turn would make stomping enemies, hitting blocks, and collecting coins easier. Around that same time, there were also two other separate ideas being thrown around too. One was giving the player the ability to destroy blocks from the side, and the other idea was the ability to spray water, so that way you can help withered flowers bloom. Now, what kind of power-up would give Mario a bigger body, the ability to break blocks from the side, and allow him to spray water? The team thought up various power-ups that would fulfill one or two of these ideas, but Mori was hit with inspiration. One power-up to fulfill all the ideas. An elephant. But those three abilities weren't all Elephant Mario could originally do. There was also another idea that ended up getting scrapped. One that allowed players to blow up shells with their trunk in order to make them bigger. We even have development footage of this idea in action. There was a lot of deliberation between team members on whether or not this would actually make the game more interesting, and in the end, they decided that it wouldn't and scrapped it. But even if it didn't end up getting in, there are still big shells in the final game that Elephant Mario can grab and throw. You just can't make shells big yourself. And fun fact, because Elephant Mario is so big, the team was forced to take a long, hard look at another staple of the 2D Mario series, one that pretty much everyone hates: bumping into each other in multiplayer. They had planned to include collisions between players just like in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, but after seeing how much stress it would cause players who were just trying to jump on a tiny platform with 3 other giant elephants in the way, they took a leap of faith and removed it. And you know what? It was the right call, and they never looked back.
As I mentioned before, the idea of the elephant power-up came into the picture early on, before they had come up with the concept of wonder effects. But Elephant Mario did steer them in the direction of wonders, thanks to a little help from the world-famous musical genius of the Mario series, Koji Kondo.
While they were experimenting with Elephant Mario's brand new water spraying ability, Kondo had an idea. Wouldn't it be cool if we put Mario in a giant rainstorm, like transform the entire screen into a wet wonderland? And if you've played Mario Wonder, you'll remember that this idea did make it into the final game. But more importantly, this was the first time someone had mentioned the idea of dramatically transforming what's on screen midway through a level. That's what wonder effects are all about. But since Kondo presented this rainstorm idea before wonder effects had been thought up, it was just treated as an interesting idea and put on the back burner. So when did wonder effects get thought up then? The idea of having a wonder flower transform the entire course in front of your very eyes. Well, first it was Sato who brought up the idea of creating wonder flowers. Well, it wasn't actually a wonder flower back then. It was a mushroom originally, which you can see in this concept art. But not only did it not look like a wonder flower, it didn't quite act like one either. Instead of transforming the course, causing things to go wacky and wild, it would just transport you to a new world. I'm imagining something like the potion doors in Super Mario Bros. 2 sending you into subspace, or maybe instead of that, it sent you somewhere entirely different. But either way, after showing Tezuka a prototype of this idea, he noticed something. This is pretty much exactly the same as just going down a pipe and warping somewhere else. This isn't different enough from the status quo. Here's an idea. What if instead of warping to a new place, we have it where the place you're already in gets warped? Like the whole course transforms into something quirky right in front of you. Okay, alright, that's interesting. Morty thought it sounded cool, but had no idea how they would actually pull that off, and Hayashida agreed. What would transforming a course even look like? Wait a minute. They shuffled through their meeting notes and found a funny idea that the team had had earlier, back when they were just trying to think of things that would surprise players. Back then, someone had the idea of creating bendable, moving pipes. Right then and there, they made a prototype to see how it would look, and this video is the actual prototype that they made. And it's perfect. I'm sure you recognize the movement. It's absolutely iconic and is used in tons of trailers for Mario Wonder. All of that came from this prototype. This one meeting with Tezuka changed everything. Instead of just sending Mario to a new area, now they were going to transform the entire course. This was huge. They finally found out what they wanted to achieve, what the core of Super Mario Bros. Wonder was going to be. And that core was wonders.
Throughout the development of Mario Wonder, the team's mantra was to make big changes. And this core idea of huge wonder effects that completely change the course itself, yeah, I'd say that captures the mantra perfectly. But of course, big changes requires a big amount of work. Morty thought that wonders were a great idea to use on like 1 or 2 courses, but Tezuka had a different plan. He figured if we're gonna do this, might as well go all the way, and let's make wonders for every single main course in the game. Now, Morty did go on record saying that he wanted at least 1 surprise per course, but a new unique wonder effect that completely changes everything from level design to gameplay mechanics, that's impossible. That's stupid. And that's what he really thought.
Well, alright, if we're gonna do this, 1 wonder effect per course, we're gonna need a lot more ideas. Having pipes wiggling around is cute, but that's just one idea. You know what we need? Brainstorming sessions. Let's grab a bunch of sticky notes, get everyone involved, and I mean everyone on the team, regardless of role, and we're just gonna all go wild. They wrote over 2,000 ideas on sticky notes with absolutely no limits on what type of wonders the team could present. Ideas range from surfing Mario, unicycle Mario, long leg Mario, to Mario being Yoshi's favorite fruit and having to dodge a barrage of tongues. As you can see, some of these ideas are extremely detailed, while others, like this, were not. This was an idea that came from a first-year programmer at Nintendo, and the note just says, "A wonder quiz starts." That's it. No other info. And even so, it made its way into the final game. Koji Kondo also had some ideas to share. Really wacky ideas. In his mind, he needed to be the one to take things to the extreme in these brainstorming sessions, and he did. His idea was to have a life-size, live-action guy dressed as Mario and playable in the game. He'd hum along to the music, and when he jumped, he'd go boing. The backgrounds and characters in the course would also become real. Horrifyingly fun stuff. Now, unfortunately, this idea did not make it into the final game. Mostly because the team wasn't sure how this wonder effect would change any gameplay elements. Things just look different. Not to mention, it would be a lot of work to pull it off. But it was such an interesting idea, one that they did not want to go to waste. So while a life-size human Mario didn't end up making it in, you could unlock the Sound Off badge in the final game, which has real human voices doing all the sound effects, including a little twang while jumping. And you know who did the voice? Kondo himself. It was his wild idea after all.
But even though the team was told to go wild with the wonder effects, they couldn't go too crazy. Players have a sense of what Mario games should be. The gameplay fundamentals gotta stay the same, or else you're gonna lose my trust. Imagine if all of a sudden you could walk through a pipe, right? Like it wasn't solid. Next time you come across a pipe over some spikes, you're not gonna wanna jump on it because you're not sure if it's actually going to be solid. It was crucial with all this weirdness going on that there had to be some level of predictability for the player to grasp onto. So, with this limitation in mind, it was time to start narrowing down the 2,000 plus ideas they had lying around their office.
Now, as you could probably guess, narrowing down over 2,000 ideas was going to be difficult. So, to make things easier, the team decided that they needed to make a system with simple rules that wonder effects would have to follow. If an idea failed any of these rules, it was scrapped. So, what were those rules? Well, first, there had to be a connection between the actual course and the wonder. For example, if the course's wonder effect turns Mario into a big balloon, then the level needed to feature something like balloon enemies, so that way the wonder effect didn't feel entirely random. Second, the wonder effect must be something that players didn't already have the ability to do. It had to be fresh and new. And lastly, the idea had to be simple to explain. If it was too complex to explain in a single short phrase, it was scrapped. After all, players need to be able to quickly understand what's going on once things start to go crazy. If an idea fulfilled all those criteria, the team would then begin making prototypes of it in the Wonder prototype meetings, so that way they could see how the idea would look in action. These prototypes were created by what they called testing teams, which consisted of one programmer, one game designer, one artist, and one sound engineer. When necessary, they would even make placeholder sounds and graphics on the spot, just so that way they could get the full picture of how the Wonder Effect would look in practice. Once the prototype was made, everyone would come together to play them. There, the team members had the opportunity to throw out even more ideas to add on top of existing ones. That way they could add layers to these Wonder Effects to make them multifaceted in a way that would truly surprise the players.
Now, what if I told you I have actual screenshots of these Wonder prototypes? No, my dad doesn't work at Nintendo. I grabbed them from a GDC talk that Tezuka and Mori did in 2024. It's all about Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and I watched the entire talk so I could bring you the most interesting info. Now, take a look at this.
These are screenshots of actual prototypes that were made during the team's Wonder prototype meetings, and you'll notice a few of them didn't make it into the final game. In fact, over half the prototypes that the testing teams made ended up being scrapped. For instance, here's Surfing Mario, which we saw earlier on a sticky note. It didn't make it into the final game, but dang does it look incredible. And then there's these floating pegs. I don't remember any Wonder Effect looking quite like this. We've also got an extremely small Mario walking on a Goomba, and this extremely claustrophobic area with piranha plants. I'm not even sure how you get past this. Mario's definitely stuck. I don't have any memory of these making it into the final game in this form, but I do remember seeing Bull Rush Stampede, which is great, because that means we can actually compare this prototype screenshot to its final version. Sure looks simplistic, huh? But that's to be expected, it's a prototype after all. It's just the basics to see if an idea is actually fun to play. And the team found that this prototype of Bull Rush Stampede was fun to play, but just a bit too simple. That's why they decided to go a bit further with it by having the Stampede knock over everything in its path, including the flagpole, to surprise the player. And speaking of simple, I've seen a lot of prototypes in my day, but this one for Beyond Mario, this one's the most simplistic I've ever seen. Here's the sticky note for the idea, which, yeah, is about as simple as the prototype itself. It's called Silhouette Mario, and it did make it into the final game, but not before getting a little bit of spice added to it, with the addition of this sticky note idea. Both of them together created the Beyond Mario Wonder Effect that we know and love today. But I don't just have prototype screenshots, we've also got prototype videos. But before we watch one, let me give you a bit of context. The first video that we're going to see is a prototype of Rolling Ball Hall. In that course, the Wonder Effect causes the entire place to tilt, and a giant spiked ball starts rolling towards the player while they have to try to collect 5 Wonder tokens. Now here's the sticky note of the idea that led to this Wonder Effect, and here is the actual prototype that was made for it. First, you'll notice that this prototype takes place in Pipe Rock Plateau, or at least that's what I'm assuming, because there's grass here. Different looking grass, but grass all the same. The final version takes place in the sun-baked desert, but to be fair, this is a prototype, so the location shown here isn't necessarily where it was planned to be in the final game. A lot of this art was temporary, without any polish, which makes things look quite different. Speaking of which, check out Mario. He looks very different from both the small Mario and Super Mario models that are used in the retail build of the game. Alright, let's go collect that Wonder Flower. Or, I'm sorry, it's not a flower here, it's just a question mark. Definitely a placeholder. The sound when collecting the Wonder question mark is very similar to the final version, but the mixing is way different, with the person screaming Wonder being way louder in this version compared to the final game. So we got the Wonder, the place is all tilted, that's awesome. But now I want to focus on the UI because there is a lot to unpack here. Sure, it's got a place for the regular coins, purple coins, and lives, but then we've got a flag, which I guess was there to mark when you've reached the checkpoint flag or not. Then there's these circles, maybe meant to hold your collected power-ups. If that's actually what it is, then it looks like you could originally hold 3 items at once in single player, compared to the final version which only lets you hold as many items as there are players. So you can't hold 3 items unless you're playing with 3 players. Actually, wait, I've got a different theory. I bet these held the 3 flower coins that you collect in each course, because it kind of looks like there's a 10 on top of the circular outline, which is the number that shows on the flower coins and inside the outline shown in the final game. That would make the most sense to me. Going back to the prototype UI, it's time to ask the big question. What the heck is this purple gem? And what is the bendy arrow that's next to it? Maybe the bendy icon is based on one of the bendy pipes? And maybe that gem is like an early wonder seed, or maybe a wonder token? I don't know. But I do have an educated guess. While I was editing this video, I actually found a picture of them in a prototype screenshot, and not just one, but 2 of them. Since there are more than one in a single level, these gems acting as early wonder tokens seems to have the most validity. But I can't say for sure. I'd love to hear your theories in the comments on what these gems might have been. The UI also showcases a gameplay feature that ended up getting completely scrapped: your score. Scores have been a fundamental part of 2D Mario games for a long time, but it was completely absent in Mario Wonder. Instead of seeing points you get whenever you defeat an enemy, now you just see good and great. In this prototype though, your score takes up permanent screen real estate, and it even shows you the points you get when defeating enemies too. But that's still not all the UI that we can see. We also get a glimpse at some debug stuff too. It shows up on the bottom left when collecting the Wonder question mark, where it lists the event, its file name, among various other things. And on the top right, we can also see information on what prototype is being played currently, and what area it's taking place in. Alright, now that we've completely dissected that prototype footage, what if I told you there was one more? And this wonder effect never made it into the final game at all. It's a real interesting one, where you get turned into Pixel Mario with a giant head made out of blocks, edible blocks. Your goal is to make sure your head doesn't get eaten by the noshers that are flying around everywhere. Pretty cool, right? Why did it get scrapped? Well, the reason is because the team couldn't think of a viable strategy to actually avoid the enemies. Jumping around, trying to juke them, didn't really end up working. So in the end, it just boiled down to asking the player to run as quickly as possible to the end of the course. In other words, it looks and sounds more interesting than it is to actually play. But I'll say, it does look very interesting regardless.
You know what? I just realized something. I've gotten this far into the video and I haven't even talked about how absolutely gorgeous this game looks. It's beautiful. But I've got a little secret for you. Even though it's a 2D game, did you know that it actually uses 3D models? Yeah, not really a shock, right? Nintendo's been using 3D models for 2D Mario games since 2006, when New Super Mario Bros. Released on the DS. And that was a big deal back then, a full-blown evolution of the series. And I even made a video about the development of New Super Mario Bros. You should probably check that out after this video. But after that initial evolution, Nintendo didn't really push the idea much further. There isn't a whole lot of visual difference between the 6 games in the New Super Mario Bros. Series. People were getting bored. It was time to innovate.
The decision to innovate how Mario Wonder looks was decided early on in development. The team looked for ways to make the game more visually engaging by utilizing the flexibility of 3D models to a higher degree than before. After all, the Switch has more than enough power to handle a 2D Mario game. So they decided to use that extra power to push visual boundaries by adding more than double the amount of animations compared to previous games, all of which use more than double the amount of joints. The more joints they use, the greater variety of movements and facial expressions they could create. But why go to all this trouble? Well, it was done to add more realness to the gameplay. Not trying to make the game look more realistic, but instead making the characters react more realistically to their environment, in order to immerse the player in the world even more. But after creating these new, charming facial expressions, they realized there was an issue they hadn't considered. Mario's nose is absolutely massive, and it was covering his face. Back in the NES days, this giant nose was done out of necessity in order to make it easier to see what direction Mario was facing. But now it was a problem. If they had Mario completely facing the direction he was moving, you wouldn't be able to see all those cute facial expressions. But if you turn him to face the screen too much, it'll be harder to distinguish the direction you're facing. So here's what they ended up doing. They put the mouth on the side of his face with the nose cranked all the way over there. They also messed with the rest of his body too, turning it slightly towards the camera. Looking at Mario in-game, he looks fantastic. But from this angle, not so much. But hey, you'll never see him at this angle in normal gameplay, so whatever. Cut, print, put it in the game. But it wasn't just our playable characters that got a redesign. Enemies also saw substantial upgrades too, with more expressions than ever before. The team knew that they couldn't change the characters' behaviors, but giving them more reactions still made them feel new all over again. Like Goombas, for instance. Look how annoyed he is that he fell into this hole. Isn't that so freaking cute? Oh, and fun fact, this annoyed Goomba expression was created by the animators before there was anything for him to get annoyed about. So when the level designers were making the game's courses, they wanted to make sure that Goombas had a place to get stuck, so that way the animation would play. This is why Tezuka knew it was important for every part of the team to stay connected with each other throughout development. If the level designers didn't create this moment here for the Goomba's annoyed expression to play right in front of the player, it could have easily been missed. Or if the level designers just didn't think about it and didn't put any holes for him to fall into, this animation could have gone completely unused. But anyway, it wasn't just Goombas that got some well-deserved love, they also gave some to the Koopas, with an entirely new variety, the Rolla Koopas, a magenta Koopa with roller skates on. The idea for Rolla Koopas came about during a brainstorming session, like most ideas in this game. Someone mentioned how Super Mario World featured brand new unshelled Koopas and Cape Koopas. Back then, Nintendo was transitioning from the NES to the more powerful SNES, and the developers of Super Mario World wanted to evolve the Koopa Troopa along with the transition. The developers of Mario Wonder wanted to do the same thing, and with that goal in mind, one of the designers had the idea of giving them roller skates. And here's some of that concept art. Like I said before, the final version of this enemy is magenta, but it looks like originally it was going to be green. Maybe they changed them to be a more distinct color just to make sure it was easy to notice this guy is not a normal Koopa Troopa. After all, they move a lot faster, so you gotta stay on your toes and know when they're coming. There were a couple more early designs for Roller Koopas that didn't make the cut, like this one with a helmet, elbow pads, and knee pads. Very safe, very nice. And then there's the American one. Let's go, hot dogs, baseball.
Now, one of Mario Wonder's big features is the variety of characters that you get to play as. You've got Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, Yellow Toad, Blue Toad, Toadette, 4 different kinds of Yoshis, and Nabbit. That makes 12 playable characters in total. That is the most variety of any 2D Mario game ever, as long as you don't count Super Mario Maker. That game technically had over 150 unique costume Marios, like a Wii Balance Board, a realistic pigeon, and of course Shaun the Sheep.
12 playable characters is still quite a lot for a game like this. Some of them, like the Yoshis and Nabbit, were designed for players who might need extra assistance playing the game since they don't take damage. But other than them, every other playable character controls exactly the same, which may seem a bit strange when you think about it. What about Luigi's high jump or Peach's floating ability? Why did they get rid of those specific character quirks? Well, that's because the development team wanted players to be able to pick their favorite character without having to worry about missing a potential secret just because they picked the wrong character. But those quirky abilities are just so iconic and really fun gameplay elements, so it'd be a shame just to remove them. What if we allowed the player to choose what ability they want to use and then pair it with the character they want to play as? We could have the players pick their preferred ability at the beginning of each level and we'll call it badges. Mori decided to take charge of spearheading the idea of badges, making it his personal passion project. The final game has over 20 unique badges, but there were more than 50 different badges that had prototypes made for them. The team wanted there to be a good variety of badges, with some based on classic moves like Peach's floating ability becoming the parachute cap badge, and others for support to help make things easier, like with the safety bounce badge, which just bounces you right out of pits. And you know what, while we're at it, we might as well add some badges that purposely make the game harder, like the Jet Run badge, where you literally can't stop running. This allowed players to essentially customize their difficulty level however they saw fit. And this idea of a custom difficulty setting was something that Tezuka wanted to see included in the game for a while. But Tezuka's idea wasn't to allow the player to pick their difficulty, but instead have it happen on the fly in real time. Initially, to help test this idea, he asked the team if they could add a debug slider on screen, so that way they'd be able to change the difficulty of the level in the middle of the level. But they decided against doing that, instead focusing on badges. What Tezuka's idea would have looked like in practice, I don't know. But when he mentioned the idea in an interview, it seemed like he hadn't quite given up on it yet. So maybe in the next game we may see a real-time difficulty adjustment happening as you play through the game, or maybe it'll never happen. We'll just have to wait and see. As you've seen throughout this video, Tezuka was full of ideas throughout development, and the real-time difficulty adjustment was just one of several that was considered impossible. Another one of these impossible ideas was having live commentary throughout the entire game. Mori heard Tezuka's idea and thought to himself, man, I have absolutely no idea what this man's talking about. Like, sports commentary? Yeah, that was basically it. So, okay, let's give it a try. And that first serious attempt at having a live commentary in the game took 6 months to put together. It had several voices commentating on what the player was doing on screen, but it felt a little weird. A disembodied voice randomly saying, wow, Mario, look at that jump. That was very nice. Yeah, I know. Tezuka was a big fan, though. He liked how it was turning out. But the team was split. Half thought it was good, and the other half did not like it. They even had customization options to tweak the voice to your liking. You had the default one, which was like a generic newscaster, and then there was the tsundere option. And I know you could probably guess this already, but the playtesters were quite drawn to the tsundere commentary, with quite a few people switching to it versus the newscaster one. But if they were going to have multiple options for players to pick, that would mean they'd have to record just a massive amount of lines. That would be way too much work, so the idea was scrapped, but not completely. I mean, wouldn't it be a shame to just scrap 6 months of work like that? So instead of completely scrapping everything, they decided to bring a new person onto their team whose sole role was just to puzzle out how to make this commentary feature work. That was their full-time job. But as I've said before, they've already scrapped tons of ideas at this point. Why didn't Tezuka want to give up on this one? Well, in the past, while making previous Mario games, Tezuka had discovered that players really like getting praised, even for small things. That's why he added that little clapping sound that plays whenever you collect a group of coins in New Super Mario Bros. U. It just makes players feel more immersed, like the world is able to see what you're doing and respond back to you. But he wanted to take it to the next level in Mario Wonder, having an actual person praise you for your accomplishments and maybe even give you a sympathy for difficult moments. That's what was going through his head when he suggested the commentary system, but how in the world are we going to make this actually work? Well, around the time that they brought this new person on board, another part of the team was discussing a different question. Where in the world is this game taking place? They were looking through different ideas, but it seemed like they were leaning towards it being a place called the Flower Kingdom. That's when an idea took shape. What if we made the commentators talking flowers? Having an actual character talk to you on screen makes it feel more personal than just a random voiceover. Plus, you'd only need to have one voice actor, so that saves a lot of time. And honestly, it just feels like something you would actually see in the Mario universe, so they went for it and ended up creating the greatest character the human race has ever had the privilege to encounter.
Listening to that flower is one of the simple joys in life. In fact, everything in Mario Wonder is a joy to listen to. From the beautiful soundtrack to the little bing sound that plays whenever you jump, the sound design is just excellent. And you can attribute that to the game's incredible sound team, who is involved in the development of Mario Wonder more than any other game in the Mario series.
See, the way that it typically works is that the sound team will join in at the latter half of development. That way they can come in when the game's visual style has been pretty much set, giving them better context on what kind of sounds they should create. But because of this choice, there was an unfortunate side effect. Even though the sound engineers were treated as part of the team and told to speak up with any ideas they had, because they came in so late during the development process, there wasn't really much they could do to shape the game. Unless it was something small, like when Kondo suggested having enemies jump and dance to the music in the new Super Mario Bros. Series. The only reason they could do that was because it wasn't that difficult to add in, even if it was towards the end of development. Kondo had always hoped to do more though. Specifically, he wanted to have a course in a Mario game that had visuals changing in response to music, like maybe making an entire course that was just a whole musical number. But there was never a chance to do that. Until now. Because this time, the sound team was involved even in the early stages of Mario Wonder's development. So team, anyone interested in making that musical number as a Wonder effect? We're making a bunch of other prototypes anyway, might as well try this one too. It started out simple, just trying to sync up piranha plants coming out of their pipes to the music, but over time it became more complex, with course designers making both pipes and platforms move in time with the song too. It was looking cool, working well, but it wasn't easy getting the idea off the ground. The course designers didn't know much about beats and rhythms, and the sound team didn't know much about course design either. So much time was spent going back and forth between the teams, doing tiny adjustments just to make sure things were in rhythm. But there was a silver lining. Working with a team that they didn't normally collaborate much with gave them a better understanding of what the other side goes through. And seeing the results of their combined efforts, they felt inspired and continued to add more into this musical number, with more enemies dancing to the music and more stage pieces moving around to create piranha plants on parade. And after seeing all the dancing enemies on screen, it gave Kondo another idea. He wanted to dance too, as Mario. That's how the Ninja Jump Party was born, an entire course designed to have you, the player, jump to the beat as well.
Now, a big feature of Super Mario Bros. Wonder is the addition of online multiplayer. But the way it was implemented wasn't quite the same as just going around with your online friends and playing through the game. It was a bit more unique. In Mario Wonder, random players from around the world show up as shadows to help you out. And the reason it was done this way was to create what the development team called a casual connection.
So what the heck does casual connection even mean? Well, it means that the online multiplayer was designed so that way no one could harm your gaming experience. The only thing people online can do is help you out, like by giving you items or placing standees to revive you. They didn't want to make online multiplayer competitive, which can leave beginner players feeling frustrated, and having it be co-op can be frustrating for skilled players, who might be matched with a literal infant holding a controller backwards. Speaking of matchmaking, all of that had to work seamlessly in the background. That is something the team was very certain about. They did not want people waiting around trying to get into courses if they have the online feature enabled. This casual online connection was planned since the very beginning of development, and it is one of the reasons why there is such a large variety of characters to choose from. That way in online multiplayer, you're not just going to see a bunch of Marios. There'll be some variety to the characters. The world maps were also designed to be nice and big in order to accommodate players from all around the world running together. But it wasn't just online multiplayer that was a focus early on. Local multiplayer was also heavily tweaked too, with a lot of changes to make sure that this would be the best 2D Mario game to play together with couch co-op. As I said before, one thing they did was remove collision to make things less stressful, and another thing was making sure there were 2 princesses in Mario Wonder. This was a big deal to Mori. It was his personal mission, because his 2 daughters would constantly fight over who would be the princess in past Mario games. Now that we've got Daisy, they could both be a princess. Their household was saved. The live system was also completely redone for local multiplayer, with all 1-ups being shared with the group. That way, if there's a person in your group who keeps falling into pits, they won't be forced to sit in silence after they lose all their lives, while all of their other friends continue having fun, not even noticing that they're gone. But since lives were going to be shared now, the team didn't want there to be frustration if one of your friends just keeps wasting all of your lives. That's why they added in the ghost mechanic. That way these players could still be saved without losing anything, so long as the other players are quick and nimble enough to save them.
At this point, the team had pretty much reinvented and refined everything in Mario Wonder. But even till the very end, they were still adjusting the courses to make sure everything felt just right. You could have all the wacky ideas and surprises in the world, but if the courses aren't fun, neither is the game. The development team was dedicated to making sure that Super Mario Bros. Wonder was the best it could possibly be. And now, it was time to show the world. Well, almost time. We gotta make the box art first, right?
Now that the game was near completion, it was time to create the promotional materials. This started around a year before Mario Wonder's release, so close to the end of 2022. Believe it or not, Nintendo's official website has an article about this process written by a graphic designer named Ito. This person was behind Mario Wonder's artwork, which includes the game's box art, posters, advertisements for retail stores, etc. Ito states in the article that they were allowed to play the game even before it had finished being developed. They even got to sit down with some of the developers to listen to what the team considered to be the most iconic parts of the game. They saw that it was filled with wonder, a sense of adventure through a mysterious world, all while staying grounded in that traditional 2D Mario charm. They wanted to make promotional art based on all of those themes, and here's some of the prototype designs. They were a bit torn between making Elephant Mario the main focus or making Wonders take the focus instead. And that logo, yeah, it looks quite a bit different compared to the final design. Some of the characters in the background also look different because their renders are just lifted from older New Super Mario Bros. Games. But of course, that's because this is a prototype. The final version of the box art is just chef's kiss, with Mario facing the right to showcase the side-scrolling nature of the game while holding the Wonder Flower and popping out of the world to show that he's going to be visiting a mysterious, unknown land. With the game, box art, and everything else ready to go, it was time to finally show this new 2D Mario game to the world. On June 21st, 2023, Super Mario Bros. Wonder was announced in the June 2023 Nintendo Direct, showcasing a couple minutes of gameplay and ending with that iconic Elephant Mario reveal. Then on August 31st, we got an entire Direct dedicated to the game, with a demo version available to play at the Nintendo Live event starting on September 1st. I was even there and got to play the demo with my wife. It was actually incredible. It was amazing. Then, a month later, on October 7th, a kiosk demo was sent to retail stores for everyone to play. And finally, on October 20th, 2023, Super Mario Bros. Wonder was released to the public. And it was beautiful.
When things were all said and done, the team took a look back at some of the notes that Sato had wrote during development. These notes were all things that Tezuka had said during their meetings that the team didn't want to forget. Things like this: don't simply replace things, change the entire approach, and find new inspirations. The team thought about Mario Wonder, the game they had poured their heart and soul into, and realized that, yeah, we really did it. We changed our approach and made something brand new. Even when things seemed impossible, the team made it through together, and they created something truly special. And this is only the beginning. They've built the foundation for an entirely new generation of 2D Mario games. The future's bright, and I can't wait to see what they create next.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. If you want to support Beta64 and see a special behind the scenes on this video, you gotta join the Patreon, and you can even get your name alongside these lovely producers as well. I'll see you next month for another video. Bye-bye.